Hey guys, so today we are talking about the methods of leveling up in the game Rift. So there are many different ways to level, but today we're just going to be going over all of the different types of or methods of getting experience, and then I'll go through my opinions on the best ways and mixtures of the methods to actually have the best experience, but also getting some reasonable gear, and making sure that you're still having fun and not getting too bored. So the different ways to level that I came up with are PvP, dungeons, instant adventures, and then doing the storyline, so just questing. So I'll start with PvP. So what I'm going to do is go through the advantages and disadvantages of both, and then once I've done them I will go into the mixing of the different types of experience that I think is the best way to level. So PvP, the advantages, we've got that it's fun. So there's a few different types of PvP map as you level up, and it's just fun, just because you get different teams, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, so it's just a bit of variation. And on the variation note, we have that you don't have to do the same quest over and over again. So I'll go through that later, but basically you don't have to kill this and collect these. You are just killing that. You're just killing other people, but it can be quite fun just because the situations are always going to be different. And then if you're on a winning streak, it should be quite a lot of experience. So experience-wise, if you're winning loads, then the experience should be quite good, especially with the daily PvP rewards. The disadvantages though is that we don't get as good gear, just because obviously when you're killing people none of their loot drops, otherwise that would be a bit weird, and the daily rewards don't give you that great gear. Another disadvantage is that if you are on a losing streak, the experience can be really low, so you won't be leveling as fast. And then the third disadvantage is that sometimes you can have really long queue times during the week or whatever. Sometimes you can just be in queues for like 10 minutes and you're just wasting time. So moving on to dungeons. The advantages is that you collect really good gear. You probably get the best gear from dungeons. You get to meet new people usually, just because whenever you use the random dungeon thing, you always get, well, not always, but you get paired with new people. So again, the situations are always different, and you've got the different roles, so you could be tanking or you could be healing, just depending on what you want to play. We've got the variation with different dungeons, so each dungeon is slightly different to the others. So bosses have certain tactics, so for one dungeon the tactics are going to be different to another one. Can be amazing experience if you have a good team. So for example, if you just have a really high level team and they all have good gear just because they've been doing dungeons beforehand and everyone knows what they're doing, you can go through them really quick, and the experience can be quite good, especially mixed with the daily dungeon bonuses. And then the last advantage that I have is that you can get quite a bit of money from all of the loot. Obviously, if you get any of the loot and you don't actually need it, you can just sell it to the vendor or whatever, and you'll just get a small bit of income. The disadvantages though is that you can get really bad teams, so you could get inexperienced people with you, or something like the tank just cannot tank and stuff like that, so you end up just spending loads of time doing nothing and not actually getting anywhere within the dungeon. So that just means that the experience is really bad. Sometimes you get really long queues, especially if you're just queuing as a DPS or support. The queues can be hours on end, but whereas if you are queuing as a tank or a healer or both, it's pretty much you get within a dungeon within a few minutes. So if you, whatever role you're playing, whatever character, try and create a tank or a healer spec. Obviously rogues can't go as healers, but just try and get a tank or healer spec, or both, just so that the queue times are shorter. It can, dungeons can get boring if you end up doing the same dungeon over and over again. So because as you're leveling up, the dungeons available to you, there aren't that many. So I think it's once you hit level 15 you can do the first dungeon, which is Realm of the Fae. Obviously until you hit, I think it's level 18 for the next dungeon, you're just going to be doing the Realm of the Fae over and over again, so that could get a bit boring just doing the same dungeons. And then some dungeons are harder than others and will take you forever, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So you need to, before you go into dungeons, or ask your teammates exactly how to do the dungeon, just to save a bit of time. On to instant adventures now. So the advantages: it can be really quick experience, especially with teams. It gives you an opportunity of getting Planarite, which can be spent on, especially in later levels. You can get some but you can get some essences for your sigil. What's it called? Yep, sigil. Planar focus, whatever. And you can also get some artifacts from them. As you're doing instant adventures, you can sometimes just get random artifacts pop up, which if you like to hunt for artifacts can be quite good. And then you've got quite a few different types of quests. So you've got ones where you have to kill a certain amount of creatures, or you have to destroy certain things, or kill bosses, so there is a bit of variation there. The disadvantages though is that you get pretty much no gear whatsoever, or no decent gear from them, so that's a very big downside compared with like dungeons where you'd be getting good gear. So you're going to be not doing anywhere near as much damage as other people that would be more geared than you, even though you're the same level. Although I said there is variation, after doing instant adventures for a long time, it can get very boring, just because you're doing the same thing over and over again, especially within the same zone. You just end up killing the same creatures time and time again, which just gets boring. And then sometimes instant adventures put you into zone events, and these give really crap experience. So I would just try and avoid doing the zone event whilst doing an instant adventure, just because the experience is terrible. So the quests, so i.e. the storyline. The advantages is that obviously you get to follow the storyline, so that could be interesting for some of you if you like to read all the text and just get an idea of what the game is about. So that could be good for some of you. You can get some gear from it, obviously nowhere near as good gear as doing dungeons, but you can get some gear from it, so that just helps you through the leveling process. You get some notoriety gains, so from completing quests you get those notoriety, or however you pronounce that word. You can just get some gains, and later on through the levels, especially at level 60, things start to require notoriety, like a certain notoriety with a certain group. So obviously if you've already started them, it just takes less time at the end to get that notoriety. It gives you reasonable experience, so as you do quests, especially once you hand the quest in, the experience can be quite good. For example, if you have a quest just to kill a certain amount of one mob, you kill all of those, you get the experience for killing the mob, and then you also get a big boost of experience once you hand the quest in, so it can be quite good. Disadvantages though is that you end up doing the same thing over and over again, i.e. kill this and collect that. So a lot of the quests during the storyline are just kill a different monster and then collect a different like herb or something from the ground, so it can be very boring. You don't get the best gear, Although you do get some gear, obviously dungeons will give you the best gear, so you will lag behind a tiny bit in the later levels where people will be doing slightly more DPS than you, or healing per second, whatever, just because they have that gear. Sometimes it can be really slow experience, so some quests take a lot longer than others, but give you the same reward at the end, so sometimes it can be bad like that. And then finally, God, my voice. Sometimes you get over leveled, so quests become too easy, and there's no challenge. And we play games for the challenge. We don't just play games so we can so everything's really easy. We play games for a challenge. Otherwise, the entire game would be boring. So if you do get over leveled, questing can become quite boring. And you end up just doing other stuff instead. So I'll now talk about my opinions on the situation as a whole, and I will tell you my opinion, or there's two methods that I have of the best way to level from 1 to 60. Okay, so my opinions. So as I said just a second ago, I have two methods that I think are the best way to level. So the first one is a mix of the storyline, but ensuring that you get your daily dungeon rewards for the gear. So if you press I is the key, that's the button I, not your eye, obviously, you get this interface come up. So the ones that will be available to you as you are first leveling up will be this random normal dungeon. So if you just hover over this random dungeon bonus, basically you'll get one of these bonuses per day with a maximum of 7 at once. And once you complete a random dungeon, you will get a reward at the end, and this is the reward. So obviously it's not going to be anywhere near as much experience as that, but you'll get an item. You'll get a chest, which when you open you'll get an item, which can give you some it'll give you some reasonable gear. It will give you some experience. Well, actually, it's quite a bit of experience, especially at lower levels, and it will also give you some money. Obviously, nowhere near as much money either. And then as you level up, so as you get to level 50, you can do some classic expert dungeons. So these are just the normal dungeons, but made harder, and there will be some more bosses, but different tactics. So that's quite good. And then once you hit level 60, you get the Storm Legion experts. And also you can do the normal Storm Legion dungeons as well. So that's my first method. So do a mix of the storyline and get your daily dungeons. So then you should be getting quite good experience and also quite good gear. So it's got a good mix of both there. And then my second method is a mix of PvP and instant adventures. So what you would do is you would just queue for your PvP match, and then whilst you're not in a PvP game, you just go out and do some instant adventures. Or what you do is you just mix it up a bit, so you do PvP for part of the day, and then instant adventures for some of it, because you can get bonuses from both. So the bonuses here, Random Warfront, again, you get one per day with a maximum of 7. And you will just get some extra experience. You will also get a reward chest, which again you can open for gear, some experience, and also some money. So that's reasonable. And then just the instant adventures, just because that can be really good experience. And then also ensuring that you again get that daily dungeon reward. So basically, do PvP, do some instant adventures, and then make sure that you do at least one dungeon, random dungeon that is, per day, just so you can get that gear. Because as I said earlier, PvP and instant adventures will give you like pretty much next to no gear. So doing those daily dungeons will bring you that gear in. So you've got a good mix of both good experience, good gear, and just quite a lot of variation. So they're my best two methods. So the other leveling methods that I know some people do, we've got people doing pure dungeons. So obviously this is doing pure dungeons, so just dungeons, that's going to get you the best gear, so you're pretty much always going to have the best gear as you level up, and it really does prepare you for later on, once you hit like level 50 and level 60, where you get some harder dungeons, and it prepares you quite a lot for raiding with the different tactics of bosses. We've got the pure storyline, so I know that on my first character all I did was the storyline. Obviously I occasionally did some PvP games and some dungeons, but I just focused on the storyline. But I ended up, as I hit the cap, I had no good gear. It got really boring, so the last levels, when the cap used to be level 50, level 40 to 50, it was a real slog of it. Like, I was just not interested in the game. I was just grinding to get to level 50, so it was just really boring. But obviously doing the storyline is quite simple because everything's just directed and you know exactly what you're doing, because you can just open up the map and it will tell you where your quest is. Pure PvP, so I know quite a few of my old guild mates, they used to only do PvP to level. And one of the big disadvantages to this is that you pretty much get no gear. So even though you're doing PvP, you're not actually that useful in the PvP, just because other people are doing so much more than you. But the advantages to this is that you can get, like, basically once you hit the max level, level 60, you'll already have like maximum favour, and you can just instantly start spending that on PvP gear, which is really good. PvP. Oh, there's one thing though. If you're just doing pure PvP, which I would highly not suggest whatsoever, if you do get on a losing streak, you can get really pissed off. I know when I used to talk to them on TeamSpeak, they got so pissed off on losing streaks, and I still get pissed off to this day when I lose like a couple games in a row. So I definitely suggest not doing pure PvP. And then we have pure instant adventures. So just doing 24/7 instant adventures is so boring. I've tried it, well, not 24/7, but I tried doing like 50 in a row, and I got to like 10 and I was falling asleep. It was that boring. But luckily enough, it's reasonable experience, so you can grind it out or whatever. But by the way, you get no gear, so I really wouldn't suggest it. So yeah, my best two methods of leveling: the mix of storyline and the, getting the daily dungeon rewards, and then the other one, which is PvP instant adventures, and also adding in those dungeons. Okay, so that's it. There's my opinions on the methods of leveling. If you have any comments or whatever, please make sure that you post them below. Hopefully this video has helped you to decide how you are going to level, and if it has, please leave a like and also subscribe if you wish to see more of my videos if you're not already subscribed. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a lovely day. Peace.